I
It just sits there like
really just fell in love with her
It doesn't-
personality
goes in.
and her as a person. She's helped me through lots of things. We've talked, we've cried with each other, we've prayed with each other, we've done
So
a
it just
lot.
stays loose.
Becky is an ordained minister as well as a certified hypnotist. And I had the opportunity to have a session with her not too long ago. And it's really funny because I really didn't know what to expect. You see on TV, you see hypnotists on TV, and they're like, watch this, you know. So I didn't know what to expect, but it's nothing at all like what's on TV. It's just relaxation, and she really helped me work through a few things that I'll always be forever grateful to her for. So I want to introduce to you Miss Becky Tashima. Yay, let's give her a round of applause. And you want to sit up front here? Do you want to stand? What do you prefer?
I'd rather sit if everybody can see
good.
me. Can I sit here?
You certainly can sit right there.
Oh, gosh. Well, it's good to be with you all. Melissa is a dear, dear friend, and she's been through a lot with me. I went through a divorce years ago, and she helped me get on my feet on my taxes. Learned to live again, and I remarried, and then I just lost my husband. Then I remarried. I lost him in June to cancer. So, so it's been a battle, you know, and a struggle, and what we all go through, different things. You know, you sometimes look up, and I do often, and say, "What? You know, what's this purpose, God? You know." But like Melissa was saying, I am a certified hypnotist, and what got me into hypnosis was my husband was Japanese. And we were going to have to fly to Japan a lot, and I was claustrophobic. Didn't really fear flying, I just feared being enclosed. And so, you know, I went to my family practitioner, and he said, well, you've got two options. I can give you medication, or you can drink. I don't drink. So it was like, you know, I kept envisioning Mr. T, you know, that Toshi was going to drug me, you know, and I'd wake up in Japan. And, you know, I thought I want to experience everything. So I came home really disgusted, and my husband said, you know, I've got a friend that was a hypnotist in Pennsylvania. You know, why don't we call him? You know, be worth a shot. So I called, and we talked, and we drove that weekend to Pennsylvania. One session, I was on the airplane to Japan the next Friday. And never have feared since. And all the trips that we were in, you know, in and out of Japan, and, you know, close quarters over there and everything. So I'm a person that if I don't believe in it, I'm not going to sell it to you.
Oh,
You know, it's just, you know, that's part of my own spiritual upbringing and who I am. If I believe in it, I'm going to tell you about it, you know. So that's kind of what got me into hypnosis. I waited 2 years and called my instructor and asked him, you know, what do I have to do, you know, to help people? My mother died of throat cancer to do with being a heavy smoker. So it was like, oh, if I could help somebody keep their mother for a little bit longer, you know, that's kind of my attitude was. And so I started studying under him, and, you know, it's not easy, you know, you're learning people's minds, you're learning all the different, you know, things that can affect people. And there's so many, you know, and people usually will say, oh, just get over it. It's easier said than done on anything, you know, and it really makes me sick when people say that to somebody, because you don't get over it, you know, at all. But that's kind of where I started, got my certification, and then opened a practice in Lexington. Took a couple of years of wading in the Bible Belt. You know, because we are in the Bible Belt here. You know, it's not like California or Nevada or all the, you know, Arizona. I mean, it's booming out there, all the natural cures and energy and everything, you know. And here it's, you know, I would get calls and people would say, is it anything against God? You know, is it mind control? And I'm like, I'm an ordained minister. If it's mind control, no, you know. So, you know, just getting above that. So once my name was out there and people realized, you know, it's not like TV, and you're not going to bark like a dog, and you know, it's just
You're
not
going to
gonna
control
do.
us, and somewhere somebody's going to
Yeah,
click something over and be like,
exactly.
yeah.
I mean, it's amazing, you know, but people don't know. It's like my father, he's an older minister, and a very strict religion. And my dad, when I first started training for my certification, I asked him one night, I said, Dad, do you understand what I'm, you know, going to be doing now, you know, getting my certification in? And he said, yeah, it's kind of like that fortune telling. I was like,
He was joking, right?
I thought, oh, no. I said, Dad, it's nothing like that. So my stepmother was actually one of my first guinea pigs that I had to get my credit hours in, you know, for passing my certification. She reduced 72 pounds.
Wow.
All natural with hypnosis. And when my dad saw that and saw the change, and he called me one day after like her 5th session, and he was like, I need you to change some things. And I was like, okay, what? And he was like, she's throwing everything out of the house. I'm going to be next. She had went home and removed all the clutter. You know, totally. Just
Clutter?
unpack, you know.
Hoarding? I want your phone number right now before I forget. Yeah, we're probably here. We got a dog you can work with. We got my
Okay,
husband.
good idea. We got business out here. But it's just, you know, and we're trained in, all my friends won't let me see their purses. And if they know I'm going to ride in their car, they clean their car out because we're trained in what, you know, it's just like what you say. The heart, you know, the mouth speaks what the heart's thinking. I've always heard it. It's true. And also on clutter or different things, if you look in someone's purse, if it's organized, you can tell they're maybe OCD. And then, you know, if it's just crammed in.
Or has trash.
You know, it's just, or trash, anything like that. It tells where the mind really is, that there's
get
so
my
much
purse.
going on. You know, the cars, you know, my daughter will pick me up and she just got her master's. And, you know, study. And so she'll pick me up and she'll say, oh, Mom, don't look at my car. You know, and she's got a degree in psychology also. And it's like, I'm like, okay, I won't look at your car, you know. But it's like water bottles everywhere. And I'm like, well, you got an excuse right now, you know, but that needs to change. But it's, the mind is so wonderful. You know, we that are Christians, I always tell people, I see Christians and non-Christians, I see Buddhists, I see just like you all, when you deal with the public. And I always tell people, whatever you believe in, we are a gift. You know, this body is so wonderful, the brain is so wonderful, and we're the ones that abuse it. We train it. We train ourselves, you know, and I tell people,
I think he's wet though. And I don't do diapers.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, don't do diapers and I can't feed no more.
Well, I'll tell you what. You'd probably make a good pacifier.
Do what?
I said you could probably make a good pacifier.
Oh, no, that I could do, but I didn't see one.
you want to wait till she comes back? No, she's go.
Okay, is she gonna, was she,
She's gonna grab a diaper.
oh, okay. Yeah, we can wait if you don't mind. She's getting into it.
Oh.
I can tell.
Well, if anybody's got a question, though, you know.
I have two actually
Okay.
already.
Okay.
Just from the different categories you've named already. Just I'm not sure if you heard her say animals.
Oh, no. Yeah, I heard her say animal, but I didn't know
I
what she
have
was.
a dog that has anxiety, and if I'm inside for too long and don't let her inside, she will begin to bite and bark and turn in circles. And I was wondering if that mental can be controlled as well from hypnosis.
Well, with an animal, they pick up on us just like our children do. So she is picking up on you, whatever's going on, you know, if you...
That's not the answer I want to be.
Yeah. Always goes back to the mom.
Still responsible.
It always goes back to us, you know. But yeah, I mean, I don't do much work with animals because a lot of times it comes from the owner, just like I said with our kids or anything. You know, if we've got a bad kid, you know, lots of times, not all the
Husbands throw
time.
into that too then.
You know, it just I know exactly. Yeah, yeah, kind of falls on
Okay.
those, you know, and we change ourselves, you know, to be able to accommodate those things. But what else was I saying? I've lost my train of thought.
We were talking about, your mom, your stepmom.
Oh, my
Yeah.
stepmother, you know, she done the weight reduction. She was actually walking with like a 3-prong crane, or 4-prong cane. Boy, that's hard to say. And was down in her back, you know, with that much weight on her. And, you know, she had kind of let herself go. And she would admit that, you know. And so we wound up, you know, working with her. And I have her permission. Anybody I talk about, I have their permission to, usually I don't give a name, but I'll say their story because it's amazing. Hers was, she started this really good roll of reducing, and then all of a sudden hit a brick wall. She hit like maybe 45 pounds and it stopped. So she called me and she said, I still can't get over sweets. You know, they're killing me. You know, I just can't get above this. So she came in and I questioned her because it goes back to a root. And the only thing she could remember as a child was getting a spanking over a sucker. She had won a sucker at a spelling bee at like 7 or 8 years old and got on the bus and a girl took it away from her. And she fought the girl. And when she got off the bus, you know, back then,
Yeah.
whatever years it was in
Yeah.
the 50s, she got off that bus, Mom was waiting there.
Yeah.
And she got a spanking and got one when she got home. And she said, you know, that's all that's happened ever to me, to do with a sweet. Well, we went in and we regressed her back in childhood. And instead of Mom spanking her, we allowed her to envision her getting off the bus and Mom saying, don't fight over things, but I understand. That's when her whole, everything changed with sweets. And she reduced the other 30-something pounds. So it's amazing what our subconscious doesn't know right from wrong. It just takes in. And our mothers were actually hypnotists before they knew it. Because how many of us have been told by our mother, don't listen to that. It'll rub off on you. Don't hang around that. It'll rub off on you. They knew what they were talking about because you keep putting it in there. And I tell people all the time, it's negativity, negative energies, whatever you're around, it's going to promote that to yourself. You know, no matter how strong you think you are, it's going to pull you down. But that was my stepmother's story as far as herself. I work with several women and have over the years that have been sexually molested as children. I kind of spoke that last time I was here. And it's unbelievable the guilt and shame they carry. You know, when they were a child and it was nothing to do with them. And it's amazing when I had one lady that came to me, she was about 45 years old, and it's been about 5 years ago, and she couldn't go to the mall or anything by herself. Nowhere shopping by herself because she felt like everybody looked at her. So after she married and had children, she always had them with her or friends with her. And so she came to me and we done a regression and released all that shame that she was carrying. And about 3 days later, I get this phone call from her, and I answered the phone, and I went in my office to talk to her, and she was crying. And I was like, oh, Lord, what have I done? You know, I mean, we always think the worst.
Yeah.
And she said, I wanted to tell you, I done something today that I've never done. Oh, my God. She had went to the mall shopping. And I sit there, and I started to cry because I was like, you know, nobody could understand my claustrophobia. I can't understand her going to the mall and can't shop by herself. Yeah. You know, it's like, to me, that's no big deal. But to her, that was her root of what controlled her. And we've remained friends all these years. And she, you know, has continued to just work, you know. But it's like that root of what was so negative. It works for the smaller things that we all face, you know, even if it's just studying. I work with kids that are still in college. You know, to try to get their brain working. I just worked with a little girl last year. She was 9 and plays on a baseball team. And she got bumped into the older girls group, and the older girls were taller. So her grandmother called me and brought her to me, and she is excelling in playing ball because it was the intimidation. She thought the big girls were going to hit her with the ball. So it's just amazing what God has allowed our brains to do, but it's turning that negative around. You know, and I usually use scriptures with Christian clients to promote that, and you know, what we were told to do that we don't do. And so Melissa and I've always hit it off because of Mary Kay. You all work with so many women, and as women, you know, when my husband died, I've always done our book works. I own 2 companies in Lexington, and I've always been a strong female all my life. But when he died, everything's put on you. That was the first time ever in my life I was alone. There was no children at home anymore. They were grown. Everybody's gone. There's nobody to answer to, nobody to run to and say, well, where's this bill? You know, what's that? So it really made me start reading more. I like Susie Orman. She's very good with finances. Dave Ramsey's wonderful. And I tell women, I read this one book, and I really need to write the title down so I can say it correctly, but it was only to do with women that Susie Orman wrote years ago. And I can't remember the title, but when I read that, it really opened my eyes of women fear money. And we don't realize we do. Men go in and ask for a promotion, they don't back down at all. Well, we take, okay, okay, well, that's okay, Melissa, if you give me this, you know. And she really talks on how we've done it to ourselves, and we really have, you know. And I mean, I meet people a lot, especially men that have been in my life, and they're like, "You scare me to death," and I'm like, "Good," you know, because I might not be physically as strong as you, but mentally, emotionally, I can whip you, you know. So with Mary Kay, I think that's such a big thing that I think their market is so good to teach women, you know, like I know women die as much as men die. But we're the ones usually that make the lower incomes and still, you know, we're the ones that do the household things. We're the ones with the babies, you know, the different things to worry about, you know, because it's awful to say, but men can find a job just about anywhere. But you take us that are older women or something, you know, we can't hardly do it, you know. And I guess it's why with Mary Kay it really pushes me, you know, and I kept staying on Melissa about, you know, we need to make these women feel good about themselves more. You know, bump up their security. If they feel a little down about themselves, don't do that. Like today, I went in to have laser surgery on my nose. So I was like, I told my doctor, I was like, I'm going to my Mary Kay to speak at a friend of mine's. And I said, well, I guess she can powder me up. And my doctor brought in this tinted stuff, you know, and she was like putting it on me, and she's like, well, it might not look as good as Mary Kay, but I'm trying to help you, you know. And I looked at her and I said, it doesn't bother me a bit. And she was like, well, that's good. You've got that self-esteem. And I was like, I'd speak in front of the president. I don't care, you know, because, you know, it's what God gives you within that comes out. And so with hypnosis, you know, we use it every day. And people look at me funny when I do lectures at colleges and things. We use hypnosis every day. Unless we've had a stroke or brain injury, we get up of a morning, we put on our clothes. We don't have to say, put right leg in, put left leg in. We are trained, and that's all hypnosis is a form of the training that we've done, like bad habits or negativity. And you wouldn't believe the negativity that comes out of our mouth. If you write it down
Or hear it.
it, you're just so amazed. And like I said, our subconscious takes in. It doesn't know right from wrong. And I've got a 3-year-old, almost 4-year-old grandbaby now, and one on the way. And I tell my son all the time, he kept telling my little granddaughter, you're a wild child. And I really got on him. And I said, she is an angel. And I said, you just back off. And he was like, well, Mom, I don't mean it that way. And I'm like, no, but that little subconscious, locking it in. And he was like, oh, well, I never thought about it that way. But even on, you know, different things we were told in our childhood, I'm grateful every day for the women that raised me. You know, my mom was very strong. My dad wasn't around a lot because they had divorced, but my mother was very strong. I saw her as weak when I was growing up because she didn't drive. She didn't work in the public. So back then, you know, other kids' parents in the 70s were working, you know, and stuff. And I remember lying once, saying my mother was a nurse. I do. And it was like, oh my gosh, you know. But I saw that as a weakness where she was so strong. She pushed me to excel in everything. So it's kind of like, you know, your programming is where you are. Does anybody have any questions or anything about hypnosis, the fears of it, or what it can or can't do? Or you don't have to share here, but you know, if you like in self-esteem or just approaching people or, you know, anything like that, you know, we can.
Are there triggers that you would hear from people that would tell you for roots or something? I mean, I don't know how to.
I usually ask people when they call me. I usually, and I guess this is what you're asking. When people call me about a session, I usually question them on what they're wanting their session on. If it's low self-esteem, you know, I'll kind of question, and I'll give them a homework assignment of take 2 or 3 days and think back through your whole life and see if there's anything. And usually they'll call me back, and usually there's one thing, and they'll say, well, I really don't know if this matters, but... So it is true that what comes to mind immediately is still in there. Like, have you ever seen somebody that, you know, bullied you as a teenager, or somebody that you really didn't like that much, and you see them and it's like, whoo, those whole emotions come up. You know, they're there. So that's part of those triggers. You know, it's in there. You know, we say, oh, we forgive and we've forgotten. I don't believe that.
No.
That is,
No.
oh man, you better be right up there pushing Christ.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
we all have those triggers. I mean, even that thought, even if you think, well, I've just forgave, and you see that person that done something, it's like, oh, I remember what they done, you know. So there are triggers that trigger different things. So that's where I go when I talk to people before their session, just to kind of get where we need to go. Like for myself, what triggered my claustrophobia was when I was about 6 years old. We went to Frankfort, Kentucky, to my mom's sister's, and we went to a little dollar store. I can remember it so vividly. And I had to go to the bathroom, you know how kids are. And the lady told my mother, you know, it was a little bitty dollar store, and she said, you know, there's one right in the corner. And of course, you know, I wouldn't let Mom go with me, you know, and the lady said, well, just tell her to leave the door cracked because the lights broke in there. And I remember going in, and I promise you, my mother was so overprotective that I bet she wasn't as far from here to Melissa's desk from that door. And my 5-year-old cousin was with us shopping, and he ran by that bathroom door and shut it. And it was pitch dark except that little white trim at the bottom, you could see the light. And I remember in my session, my blouse was just soaked from crying because it took me back in regression of that memory. But when the hypnotist worked me through it, you're okay. You're a grown woman. You survived. You lived. And once that was over, the trigger was gone. It's never bothered me in 8 years. So it's kind of amazing, you know, just something that small. And I even told him that. It was like, he said, well, go back and think on what, you know, different things that's happened in your life. And I said, well, you know, this is one thing I remember. And he said, you know, there's your trigger. And when we got to that, it was like, I thought I was dying. I mean, it was just that vivid. But with certain things, I can put blocks up to where people don't get as emotional, like the child situations or anything. We can actually put blocks up to where you don't overreact or feel it. You know, you can sense it, see it, and dread it, but you're not reliving it. So it's just amazing what the mind can do, you know. And like I said, with you all touching so many women's lives, you know, and you're going to see women that are affected by these things, you know, whether it be abuse or whether it be now abuse, you know, and a lot of people won't speak out. You know, they still don't, as women, say what they should say, you know.
I was thinking, when we do, like a facial or something with women, and you can just get a sense with that woman how, that there has been something. I'm thinking of a lady in particular, from our church. Is there words that you would not use? And the reason I'm saying is like she'll say, like Alina, because she's working with this dog, and she says, don't tell her she's a good dog. Is that what the dog
with
Yeah.
children, don't tell them they're a good child or a bad child. It's good behavior and bad behavior. Look, they're always good children. That's just
Right.
bad behavior.
Exactly.
You're a good boy, and I mean, I was just thinking like there's
Good
kind
boy,
of
good
words
boy.
that if they do, and there's different things that like children will do, and it's something that they should. It's a natural thing that they should do. That's not what makes them good. So you don't want to
Exactly.
say they're good
Exactly.
in that. You know what I'm trying
Well,
to
they grow up knowing good, so anything they do, that's
Is-
like a bad grade. Oh my God, I'm not good no more.
Right,
I mean,
right.
it's
So you don't
programmed in them, so
right.
you
So
don't want to.
Are there words that you stay away from that we should be?
You know, like you said, if you sense, you can tell when you work with a woman and they're like, "Oh, I look so terrible." You can bet they've heard that word before.
So
You know,
yeah.
you know, the best thing is to avoid that negativeness in them. You can't say, "Oh, well, you're beautiful." We react by saying that.
Yeah,
you
and
know,
that's
we
what
react by,
that's a good example.
You're
So
just,
that is.
You're just gorgeous.
You don't want to give them that falseness because then they're not. Because they'll know. Yeah.
Exactly,
So,
exactly. And I usually, when I'm working with people that I know have low self-esteem or something like that, I usually try to go with my heart, and I'll say, you know, we're all working on it. You know, you put yourself with them because they see you all as, oh my God, they're beautiful. They got all this makeup. They know how to use it. They know how to. So they're going to look at you as, wow, what this fabulous job. So when you bring yourself down, it's like with children. When you lower yourself to talk to them, You know, if it's a little one and you're trying to get them halfway not crazy, you know, you get down to their level, you know, and kind of talk to them more. So it's kind of like that, even personality-wise, on people that you all would deal with. You know, it's like telling somebody that you suspect is being in an abusive relationship or anything. You can tell them all you want to get out of that, or to move on, or live. You know, it's like myself with grieving. You know, all my friends keep saying, well, you'll get over it. Well, yeah, I know I'm going to get over it. I know I will. Life progresses. And my husband told me to live, and, you know, and went over all that with me, you know. But it's
You
like,
still miss them.
you still miss him, and you've got to go through the grieving process, you know. And I always tell them, when they tell me that, I always say, I know that, but I'm going through my grieving. So I always give them the answer back, you know, of, so just like with that, with the women, I hope that helps to, you know, to be able to listen to what they're saying, you know, and if they do say that, you know, just put yourself with them of, you know, we're learning that, or this, you know. That's something I feel we're all so equal. You
When
know.
you're working with someone, do you ever get into kind of a, did you pay your electric bill? I'm a good student. Can you tell I'm a teacher?
So funny.
All right, you're going to the principal's office. Lonnie upstairs will be waiting for you. Yeah. Yeah, you thought that was pretty funny, huh? Yeah. Aren't they
Aw, yeah, you are adorable.
You were saying
Guilty.
something?
cute? Yeah, I was trying to. Do you ever get, when you're hypnotizing, working with people, and you're getting in, do you get in kind of an argument or a bantering back and forth with them?
No, never. The only time that people really talk during a session is if I know I'm going to have to question them. If we know what they're going to work on, say if it's weight, and I have already done their pre-talk, I've got their script written out, usually there's no questions. You know, I may, if they've got an issue with mom or dad and we have to regress back to childhood or something, I'll sometimes, you know, say, just by saying yes, are you with them? Can you see them? You know, the only time we usually do questioning, and this gets really touchy, and a lot of people ask me, how can you do this kind of session if you're a Christian? I'm one that I'm very open spiritually, and I have not died, and I've not crossed over, and I don't know. But I have people that really believe in past lives. So I do past life regressions. Those people talk. And I tell you, some of the sessions I have done, if those people haven't lived before, they sure, you know, and I tell people all the time, you know, and they're like, you're a minister and you're a Christian. How do you even, don't cut that off and say, no way. And I'm like, you know,
That's where they're at.
I'm very, yeah, that's where they are. And that's, you know, it's not my choice, you know, of saying right or wrong. But when those people start talking, there's no, I mean, it's as if they were telling you what you done today, and they're telling you back in 300 BC or something, you know, and they're, you know, and it's like, and some people, it's really amazing that, some people have gone in, I've only had it happen to me one time, but a lot of hypnotists I know and recorded, through history of hypnosis, some people have actually, had pains, like back pain or leg pain, and they've went in and done a regression, and they were speared, or they were shot, or they were in that area, and they saw themselves like fall, and once they were brought out, the pain was gone. And they've actually had doctors sit in on sessions that were like, you know, very, you know, they just didn't believe it at all, and afterwards. So whatever the mind's doing, you know, and I always tell people, I don't know if it's right, I don't know if it's wrong, but whatever it's loosening in there, take it. You know, however our mind can absorb it, if God or the universe, whatever somebody's believing in, if it's helping their life here, you know, to get rid of that, okay. It's their choice, you know, and things. But it's amazing what the mind can do, and it holds on to garbage that none of us need. You know, I mean, a lot of us can sit and think of something back to childhood, you know, that affected us. Or, like I said, with women, it's a big thing on money. I mean, you know, and it comes through just our upbringings of, you know, our grandmothers didn't make much money and our moms didn't, you know, and I know Susie Orman in that book, she starts out by telling about her grandmother, how intelligent her grandmother was. But in that time era, her grandmother had to act like the men were the ones that came up with the whatever it was, you know, and so they could get the praise, and she was the one that done it. So it's like, you know, we've kind of had that bred into our, you know, who our beings, you know, and we do that, you know, so it's kind of sad. So with the jobs you all have, I guess that's why with Mary Kay, it's like, you're touching so many women that I was just telling a friend the other day, she's very scatterbrained. She didn't have her papers in order or anything. And if her husband dies, she's going to be up a creek. And I have told her numerous times, and I've talked to Melissa about this friend, and it's like, it just makes me fearful because even as organized as me and my husband were all our years together, I've still had to dig for things and turn in things. I mean, just the other day I had to go and untitle his motorcycle. And if I hadn't had where everything was, you know, so it's like, you know, we do, as women do so much more sometimes, you know. It might not be as physical, you know, but, you know, just reaching the lives that you all reach. I guess that's what really hits me with hypnosis, you know, is the self-esteem, or, you know, when you do see those women that are a little bit, you know, kind of beside themselves, or they don't believe in themselves. You can't go in, like I said, and say it's all okay, because you don't know what they're living in, you know, or what they've gone through. So to bring yourself to that level of, you know.
A lot of times we'll see in people, because we're on the, and I totally believe in what people on the outside will see and know so much more about what you think you know about yourself. They'll know more about you. It's like, well, you know the potential that person has, and it kills you. Is like, how do you get them to understand they do have that potential? And a lot of times we come across women like that in our Mary Kay, and you go, and people say, "Oh, you would be so good at this business because you're, you know, da 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 da," and they're going, "Oh, no," and it's like, okay, so how do we get them over this hump of saying, yes, you are?
I think a lot of times sharing your personal story, like I said, coming down to their level of, like the lady you said that was a milk cow farmer, now she makes six digits.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, you know, it's hard for us to comprehend that.
Yeah.
And especially if you're living in an abusive relationship, or a relationship where you're not hardly paying your light bill. Heck, you ain't gonna think at all you're gonna make six figure ever in your lifetime. But just coming down to that level of saying, well, I started this because, you know, I didn't have, you know, I was struggling week to week to week. But, you know, who do you know? You know, who do you, you know, kind of coming down to those ladies' level of where they are on an emotional and mental level of what they think about themselves, you know, and you don't know the upbringing they've had. You know, some may have grew up with mothers that never wore makeup or thought it was the devil. I mean, I've actually had that in my own family. They, you know, I've got some that are very religious that believe makeup's just, woo, buddy, you know, and so, you know, like I said, feeling out those people when you talk to them, you know, because it's hard for any of us to believe what we can be till we hear somebody else's story of, well, this is why I started, you know. And it's like women that I speak with now that I'm a widow, you know, and I tell people, you know, if you told me 12 years ago I would have been divorced, I would have laughed in your face. And if you told me I would have remarried a year after I divorced, I would have really laughed. And then if you told me I was going to be a young widow with the man I fell in love with and married, you know, so it's like, you know, when you do talk to people and you can come down on that level, you know, it really does open those doors a little differently, you know. So I think just passing that to those women, you know, and anybody you talk to, even in Mary Kay that wasn't here tonight, you know, sharing that of coming down to their levels of, you know, when you talk to a woman, you know, and she looks in the mirror and says, ooh, yuck. You know, I mean, it even took myself a long time to do that. I sang professionally on Nashville for 6 years and done some stuff with Vince Gill and different other ones. Had a makeup artist with me all the time. But still, when I looked in the mirror for years, I was like, oh. And I learned not to do that because it's like, if God created me, I'm insulting Him.
Yeah.
So how did you teach yourself not to do that? 'Cause
Yeah.
I know that there's a lot of us here that maybe have a little low self-esteem or not as much confidence. So because when they look in the mirror, they're thinking, "Oh gosh." So how did you do that?
Well, one of my best friends told me one day, she said, you know what I do? And I said, what? She said, I look in the mirror every morning and I smile. And she said, when I smile, I start laughing. Well, I started doing that. And I swear, I mean, it is, because you're like, God, I'm being stupid. You know, you're looking at yourself. So I started doing that. And every morning I would think of what Brenda told me. And then I gradually, you know, I'd look in the mirror and I'd say, well, you know, you don't look half bad this morning, you know. And it was like, kind of talking to yourself, you know, it's like, and it gradually grew on me, you know, because even through my life, especially when I toured out Nashville, and you know, my music career, you're made up in makeup, you look like a totally different person. I mean, I showed somebody a tour picture once and they said, is that you?
Yeah.
Yeah, it was, you know, and so, you know, and they were like, wow, that was a good makeup artist. I'm like, yeah, I wish I was me. But they were, you know, every comment they were given, it was that little twist of an insult in my brain. So again, it's that what's being spoken, you know, but just looking in the mirror and saying, you know, I've been created to be who I am, and, you know, I'm cute today. And I swear, I really believe this with all my heart, the more positive that we speak, the more that comes out. You know, it just shows and shines. You know, I had somebody the other day, they told me, and it does embarrass me because I was all dutied up, had my contacts in, and a friend said, you are so pretty. And I said, oh my God, I don't know how to react. And he said, just take it.
Yeah.
Same thing.
And I thought, you know, it's just, you know, I remember our preacher at church years ago, he said that people, it's hard to take compliments. And I've tried to remember that over the years, but you do forget. And he said, you know, he had heard people say, oh, well, I like your jacket. Well, instead of saying, oh, thank you, we'll go into, well, I've had this 10 years.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Or, you know, and it's like, even that programming of saying that, you know, and it's like,
very programmed.
yeah,
Yes,
it's like,
it is.
I had
You
a
do.
Christian mentor, and I tell this. In fact, I was just in the drugstore in Wilmore, and one of my elderly Mary Kay ladies was in there, and she's picking a prescription, and I said, oh, how are you today? You're just looking so lovely. Oh, this, and I said, now are you going to call me a liar? And she just stopped and said, what?
that's a good one.
And I said, no, I said, and then I went on to explain, I said, I'm very, my mentoring friend would give me compliments, and I do that same thing. Oh, blah, 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 blah. And she said, you know, I'm giving you a blessing by complimenting you,
Yep.
and when you don't accept that blessing, that compliment, that blessing, then I don't get the blessing from God. And that just changed it
That
right
changes
there. It's
it.
like,
That is
oh my
awesome.
gosh, I am not going to stop
I like
anybody
that.
from God. And that really is when you, because you are passing on something
Right.
that God teaches us
Yes.
to
Yes.
encourage or whatever that person, whatever you're making the comment to. So it was like this little triangle thing, and you're stopping it because she doesn't get from God because He's given to her and she's given to you.
That's
and,
true.
and it's like, oh,
That's
and then I explained
really
that to her,
good.
and she goes, oh, that does make sense. And I said, I want all the blessings I've got, so you better take that compliment. And she just laughed, and and laughter to me is right
Yes,
next
exactly.
to that.
The
So,
healing
but it
tone,
is
yeah.
very true.
Yeah.
And somebody, next time you give them a compliment in a gentle way, just like with that with
Yeah.
humor, is explaining, you're going to rob me of a blessing if you don't take that compliment.
That's true. That's true.
had not
Exactly.
thought that.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And you know, we live in such a fake society
Yes.
anymore.
Yes.
That people just automatically. My Japanese husband, they don't say I love you. You know, to their children or anything. It's their culture because they feel you know you're loved. You're being took care of. You're being fed. You're being clothed. You know, so they don't overly know affection. So when he and I got together, I said, well, I'm just going to tell you one thing. You better tell me. So it was like, and he said he learned from Americans, though, that it was so easy to roll off the tongue. I love you, and it was like, it was no meaning behind it. So, even with compliments, we're so, and not all of us, but you catch yourself sometimes complimenting something that, oh, I don't know if I should have, because you really didn't, the heart wasn't there.
Yeah.
So it is, I think people that get those compliments sometimes are like, well, do they really mean it? Or, and I mean, me being a widow now, your defenses come up because my first thought was, okay, you just complimenting because you're after me. I mean,
Yeah,
you know,
yeah,
and this
yeah.
is a person I love and dearly know, but it was like that bad subconscious that's been trained in this society of what widows go through or what, you know, what men are after, you know, and I thought, Becky,
Yeah.
you know, and I thought, I'm not gonna do that, you know, so I'm glad you shared that because I've never heard it explained, blocking somebody's blessing.
It does
that
every
is-
time somebody gives me a compliment, and it's like, and she stood there like, well, what do you say? And I said, thank you.
Yes,
I said, that's all you have to do.
Yes.
Just say thank you and then shut your mouth.
exactly.
You know,
It really is.
I mean, and I
It
tell
is.
myself that and catch myself. Oh, it's thank you.
Yes, exactly. It's like looking in the mirror and smiling. I mean,
Yeah,
you know,
yeah.
just
It's
to
training the
get-
brain to do
training
something.
the brain to do something different, and it doesn't like it. But they've shown proof that 21 days of doing something different. You know, like how many of us get in the car and we drive, and we don't even think about where we're going. I drive straight from Hamburg to here, and I don't even think.
Yeah.
You know, and so it's like, I mean, I've driven places before, and I'm like, oh dear Lord, how did I get here? You know,
And you realize when something, because Lee'll say, well, how do you get to this house that, you know, I'm clean, whatever, and it's like, I don't know how to give you directions, I just get there. I just
See?
know, you have that
Exactly.
feeling of how far you drive, then you know you're going to make a right-hand turn, so you know where
Exactly.
you're going to
Yeah.
get
Yes.
into the right, you do
Yes.
that, especially in the city,
And
it's
that's
like, I
the
don't know how
program.
you get there. I can
And
give
when
you
people
directions.
tell me, oh, no, I've never been hypnotized, I'm afraid. And I'm like, you use it every day.
Yeah.
You've been
Your
hypnotized
brain.
every day. Your brain is, that's part of what hypnosis is. You know, it's just, and like the young lady was saying earlier, for you that have never been hypnotized, it is a form of relaxation. You're not in la la land. Some clients now, I know what they're working on, and they really go real deep to where they'll say, I didn't remember anything. But most people really remember each step. Some people say it's like a movie. Some people say, you know, I really couldn't see, but I could feel something. So it doesn't matter. And programmings last a lifetime. People have called me that quit smoking, and like 10 years later, they got mad at their spouse and they started, and they'll call me and they'll say, oh my gosh, did I mess myself up? And I'm like, the programming's still there, but you've got to put it down. You know, so anybody I see, I always tell them if they need to come back for that refresher so the subconscious can unlock again, but it's there, but it's in their time. Because, you know, I tell people all the time, I can't make you lose weight, I can't make you quit smoking, can't make you forget things. It's that want to, that desire of the change, you know, just like with weight. My stepson has reduced over 100 pounds and just totally took his life, you know, just a change. And it came from being tired of being overweight. His knees were hurting. He was only 40 years old. And, yeah, my husband was older than me. So we always laugh because my stepson's almost my age. And he's one of my, you know, we're like brother and sister instead of stepmother, you know. So, but it's just, you know, it's what you want, the desire of the change, self-esteem, speaking in public, you know, whatever the changes are. Being able to sleep of a night. And people will call me and they'll say, well, what does hypnosis, does it work on this or that? And I always tell them, if there's something, call me. Because, you know, usually we can get in there and kind of root it out a little bit, you know, to get you to the other side. Or some people, I've actually told them, you're not ready. Don't come see me because you're not ready. And it took me the first year of my practice to do that because I was learning myself even. And I'd have smokers call and I would question them and then I'd see them. And then like the second year and third year into it, I started realizing this person ain't ready. And I would tell them, you know, my statistics are very high. So I don't want just your money. You know, I can take your money, but I can tell you it ain't going to work for you yet. And I had one guy, he said, you mean you don't want my money? And I said, no, not that I'm not rich by no means. But I said, you know, if you come to me and it doesn't work, and I know it's not going to work for you right now, then you're going to go back and tell all your friends it didn't work for me, you know. And I said, then why would they call me if they've got a big issue? He said, well, I never thought about that. So about 3 months later, that guy called me and had success. But it was like, he said, you know, his wife and kids wanted him to quit. It's not a good reason. You know, you've got to want to quit or change whatever it is, you know. And, you know, we tweak your appetites. you know, with hypnosis, exercise. I tell people one thing they can do if they want to reduce weight, park at the end of the parking lot. We all can do that because there's plenty of spaces. And I catch myself, every time I see a client for weight, I'll go to Walmart. It never fails. And I'll circle and circle, and then I'm like, practice what you preach. And then I'll park somewhere and I laugh. You know, I usually laugh because I'm like, you know, it is hard to do that, you know, especially if you're carrying extra pounds that you don't want, but that's part of it, you know. And I don't care what people say, society looks at us. You know, they look at how we carry ourselves, our personalities, they do, you know. And if you're not happy within, you know, it's not going to show without, you know. And I mean, I've always been the type of person, I love life and I love God and I feel blessed, even through trials and tribulations. And I remember my son and my stepson text constantly to check on me. And it brings tears to my eyes to know boys that are grown do that. And my stepson texted me one night. His dad had been gone maybe 2 months. And he said, "What are you doing?" And I said, "Nothing." And he said, "How are you?" And I texted him back and I said, "Do you want the truth or a lie?" And he texted me back and he said, "Never lie to me." And so I texted him the truth. And from then on, it's been almost 10 months, I've texted both boys the truth. And they've pulled me through during that, you know, because they always laugh because when I'm real stressed, like yesterday, I had a rough day with Easter, I'll clean house and move furniture. And my stepson said, "You should look like Popeye by now." Because, I mean, I have long dressers, 6 foot long dressers, you know, pulling them, you know. But it's just what the mind can release, you know, just like with hypnosis, you know. And I mean, I can get to myself because we're trained in hypnosis, you know, on doing self-hypnosis. But there's just certain things that you do have to have that other person. You know, it's like the healer can't heal the healer all the time. And that's what a girlfriend of mine tells me, you know, you do have to go in. So.
One of the things that I'll share that she really helped me with, my sales have been great. I haven't told you this. They've been great. I kind of come to a stopping point. You know, I'd have my weekly sales, but I wasn't going any further with sales than I should be. And come to find out, going back, you know, in my session, we learned that part of the reason that I wasn't making more sales than I was is because in my mind, in my subconscious, my dad was always the breadwinner of the house. My mom stayed home and raised us children. But, you know, that was in my subconscious, and my subconscious was telling me it's not okay for me to go earn more money.
You're going to make more money than what?
Yeah. It wasn't, in my subconscious, it wasn't okay, but we talked about that, or she talked about that, and gave me some techniques, and since then, it's really funny because, you know, we were having some financial problems, and I prayed and prayed, you know, for some help, and then the next thing I know, Becky is talking me through this, because I feel like God used her as a vessel, you know, to get to me, and ever since then, it's like, you know, tax appointments, bookkeeping jobs, new Mary Kay clients, it's all like coming, it's like I'm drawn, and I'm not afraid to upsell anymore. You know how you're sitting down with somebody and you're like, oh, I don't know if she should spend that much money, she doesn't look like she should. We all do it, right? I don't do that any longer. It's like, you know, if she's asking me, she's going to spend her money with me. You know, if she's not going to spend it with me, she's going to spend it at Walmart and buy junk, you know. And so I want her to feel good about herself. So I don't mind at all. And I will sell her and ask her until she tells me no. I would not have done this a year ago. I would have stopped. And I'm telling y'all this because I love you and I can be open and honest with you. And just to let you know that, you know, if you're at that point in your business, something's stopping you, find out what it is, because it is so releasing.
Yeah. And for women, it's, kid you not, you know, we all have grown up with that. Like I said, my mother was a homemaker, hard worker, boy, you know, and, but we've got that programming in our minds, you know, and then with our husbands, and we've heard of people divorcing because the wife made more, or, you know, those stereotypes of things that we've all learned, you know, that held us back, you know, and even putting that foot out of failure. I've had, I don't know how many people say, well, I'm afraid to do that. What if I can't do it? And I'm like, I've run companies all my life. I toured down Nashville. I've stood in front of hundreds of thousands of people that bought tickets. And I remember, this is so funny, I sang locally for years with a band here in Lexington. And we played in bars and all kinds of places, when I was younger. And I remember the first time when Lynn Anderson was back in my career. And I walked out on stage in front of I don't know how many thousands of people. And they were actually not drinking.
Yeah,
And I thought, oh my gosh, are these people gonna like me? They paid for a ticket.
They're really gonna listen to
But
me.
again, it's like the programming
Yeah.
of, oh my goodness, So, like I said, I guess with Mary Kay, where you all reach so many women, and are in their lives, and they look up to you, for the jobs that you do. I mean, it really is. I mean, I look up to Melissa. I see online where she's going to California, or she's won this award, or I mean, I'm not in this business, but it thrills me because she's out there, hitting the pavement, and it's not easy. I run 2 companies. I know it ain't easy, and it's hard to motivate yourself sometimes. And I told Melissa, if people want to do some bartering, I'll be glad to do that. If they want to do bartering with products,
bartering.
I do, and I do that with friends that are massage therapists. I see, I'll get a massage for that, and different things. So if I'll pass around some cards.
I was
if
gonna
that's
say, you've got some
okay.
cards to pass around. Does anybody have questions for her?
Do you need computer repair?
She has a Geek Squad for her husband.
Yeah, well, yeah.
I need to ask you about
If
the router.
you pass those, and then
Can you?
the bottom number
birthday. I thought that was so
is not a working number anymore. That was my husband. So
It's
cross
the
that.
bottom number.
Cross that bottom
Okay.
number. The 221 number's my personal
Would you
cell.
lay me a
The
card
bottom
on
one.
Then I got it right the
Right,
first time.
exactly, yes.
You
I
were
do.
just fascinated with that baby. You are. You would get licked to death.
Here's
I do the pre-talk before you even come in and have the,
The
whatever you're
221 is
working on. Like if people are
Or the
coming for
221 is-
smoking, I'll
Okay.
question them when they started, who were they with,
Number.
Oh,
what did
that's
they
a number.
remember about
That's the
starting.
Okay.
So I do that with any situation, like when do you know this phobia started, or what do you sense when you get ready to do this or that, And then, after I do all the pre-talk, I'll sometimes give people homework for a couple of nights before I see them, just to see if anything else rings a bell or comes out. And then once I see them, I have people that some sessions one time, they're, they don't need me anymore. And then I have some that'll do multiple sessions, like weight reduction. If somebody comes in and wants to reduce anything over 50 to 100 pounds, I usually see them like several times because of programming, what they might start out really great, like my stepmother did, and then hit a wall over something that was in the past, and they didn't know it was there until it presents itself. And that's another thing, we women like to look good, but, a lot of times we go by what our husbands or boyfriends or fiancés think. And I hate to tell you this, but I've been around a lot of men, not dating, but around a lot in my careers. And they, they want to look at the pretty thing out there, but they're afraid their wife's going to either look them or, you see that a lot out there. So when you do deal with women, keep that in mind even. That, she may be living with somebody that doesn't want her to outlook, upscaling, or somebody might look at you and say, whoa, pretty good looker there. I mean, I hate to say that, but it's true, I think to clean the scabs out, we have to get to the down and dirty of your clients, of my clients, of finding out, where these issues lie, and maybe they have to let their husbands or spouses or whatever know, I'm not gonna leave you just because I look pretty or I'm wearing a different eyeshadow, So just, and if you all ever have any questions, to do with a client, and you run into something and you're like, oh, what would I say to help this lady? Call me. I mean, I don't mind a bit to give my opinion or give something I've seen, I don't mind at all, you know, and stuff, you know, because it's, we're here on this earth to help each other. You know, and I was very blessed to, my husband was one of those people. He just, that's what I'm, yes. And I've got smoking things. I don't know if anybody has smokers in their life, but I'm gonna leave some with Melissa.
Yeah, 'cause you know I got a smoker in my life.
Yeah, yeah.
Are you a smoker?
I am the person.
Are you?
She is that person.
I am the person.
Wow.
There we go. Pass her one of those.
Here you go, girl. We'll expect great things from you.
And you know how much money you could save getting rid of those?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, I know. It's really
Yeah.
getting
It's
into my
amazing.
shoe money now.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Well,